At this particular meeting, we're going to talk about the commercial real estate in Beverly Hills in the earlier years. Today, this is the location of Tommy Hilfiger behind me, and this property was bought by my grandfather previous to acquiring the location where the Beverly Hills Hotel stands. This was bought in 1910. The Beverly Hills Hotel was built in 1911 and opened up in 1912. This property was bought in 1910. Of course, it was just barren land, as everything else was in Beverly Hills, for $1,500 for this corner. Today, this property commands rents more than what my grandfather paid for it in purchase price, creates that in rental income on a daily basis. It was previously occupied by the Fuller Company, the Jack Freeman Carpet Store, and then after that it was Dick Carroll's wife's women's wear clothing store. Back then, the rents commanded the whopping price of $0.05 a square foot a month. These are some letters about having problems leasing up some of the properties at the current market rental rates of $0.05 a foot. On Rodeo, the finest retail merchants in the world occupying these spaces that extend from the Beverly Wilshire through Rodeo Drive and basically even up to the Beverly Hills Hotel. This is from the Sunday Times of March 19th, 1916, and talking about the proposed route from downtown to the ocean down Beverly Boulevard. This would take you from downtown Beverly Boulevard and the Wolfskill Ranch, which is Beverly Hills, through Westwood, which is now Westwood area, Brentwood area, down Santa Monica, down to the beach. This is a part of a Beverly Hills market survey based in 1933, which talks about the earning power of the city of Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills is a primary market which has 6,400 families as of March 31st, 1933, representing a population of 23,150. The total annual purchasing power of these districts is now $51 million, of which 37 is in the primary area and 13 million in the secondary area. Beverly Hills has no general merchandise store in 1929. According to the census, it has only one at this time, which is Newberry's, which was on Beverly Drive. And there was a fountain there on Beverly Drive, and they had a pet store in the back of it, and had two levels, downstairs and upstairs. And I remember going there to buy presents for my father and family for Christmas. Newberry's is now occupied by a Videotech, which was a video store after Newberry's left. And I put in Victoria's Secret and the Limited store, which is no longer there. And today it's occupied by Anthropologie. The question has been asked, how did I get involved in commercial real estate? I shied away from it because that's what I was supposed to do. And for years I didn't, but initially I got involved because people would ask me if any of our property was available for lease, and I would say, well, ours isn't, but I know someone else whose is. And found out that I could make money doing that. I would find retail locations for merchants primarily in Beverly Hills, and I probably leased a couple hundred stores, and most of the merchants are still my friends that I did business with back then. Bruce Meyer, who owned Gary's, brought him a tenant for his building that he bought from Carl Schurz next door to where Gary's is on Beverly Drive. But when I was a child, in this building was a store called the Beautiful Web and the Joke Store. Now, this was a store that sold only jokes. Books that would open up, the fingers that you'd put in the door, the faucet that would attach to the wall, the gum that would snap, the disappearing ink. This was one of my favorite stores. Today that location is occupied by Banana Republic. At the particular time when they went in, they were paying $4 a square foot, which was an astronomical, that was the first benchmark for real estate on Beverly Drive, and that was probably 1990. Now the north face has gone in on the 400 block of Beverly Drive, and they're paying over $7 a square foot a month, plus, plus, plus.
Yeah.
Across the street from this location was Hunter's Bookstore, which we sold to the Mabubes when they first came in from Iran in 1968.
Tell me about the Max Whittier estate, please.
Max Whittier and Burton Green were two of the original developers of Beverly Hills proper. Max Whittier had a gorgeous home on Sunset Boulevard that was this stately, colonial, columned, beautiful home that occupied probably about 4 or 5 acres sitting there on Alpine to Rexford on the north side of the street. Prince blah blah bought this house, and before that point in time there were no restrictions on what you could build and what you could do here in Beverly Hills, because no one thought anybody in their right mind was going to do what this guy did. He subsequently had these tacky statues surrounding the house with pubic hairs on the statues, painted in. People were coming from all over to come and see this huge room that was climate controlled, that would simulate either a rainforest or the Sahara Desert. He had full-grown stuffed elephants and giraffes. He was recalled back to Saudi Arabia and left in his wake a ton of bills. The reason it sat vacant for so long is there are so many liens on this property from so many people that this guy owed money to that nobody could untangle the mess. Jack Hansen owned the Daisy Discotheque, which formerly was Romanoff's restaurant, where my mother got engaged to my father in front of that Romanoff's. My mother was going out with Jimmy Stewart at the time. My mother was an actress. She came out here under contract and met my father at the Racket Club in Palm Springs. And my grandfather fell in love with her and decided this was going to be my mother, and bought out her contract from 20th Century Fox at the time. One of the things is he didn't want an actress in the family, and the other thing is you couldn't belong to the Los Angeles Country Club and be an actor or an actress. I've bumped into people over the years that had been in this building, and Piggly Wiggly was in this building down here. This was torn down in 1968, around there, and the Bank of America was built here. The Bank of America was across the street where the Museum of Television and Radio is today. And then it was occupied by Security Bank. Now it's the Museum of Motion Picture and Television. My father owned numerous restaurants, including the Disneyland Hotel restaurants and bars. My dad had a restaurant there called the Gourmet Restaurant, and upstairs they had a banquet room where all the honchos in Beverly Hills met to decide which way the streets were going to go and how the parking was going to go, whether it was vertical, horizontal, or whatever, back when life was simple. I would have my birthday parties upstairs. I was born October 13th, so there were usually Halloween parties where the kids would dress up and come, and I remember having free reign in the restaurant where the ice cream, I knew where that was, and my friends and I would stop by and have ice cream when we were out around Beverly Hills. It was running down Santa Monica Boulevard there towards the 76 station. There was a bar area, and Andy Williams got his start in that bar. Some of the school teachers from Beverly Hills, I think, had a couple of pops at lunch in there to go back and deal with us kids. Next door to where the city has just purchased a piece of land that is burned down on the southwest corner of Santa Monica and Cannon Drive on the southwest corner. The city has just purchased that for $1,650,000 in that kind of range at $231 a foot. There was Rexall on that corner, and they had a counter in there also, as did Morley's drugstore across the alley. Of course, I preferred Morley's because we owned the building, and I was able to charge there. Then next door to that was the Little Club, a really down and dirty bar that would open, I think, at 6 in the morning. And then where Dick Carroll is today on Cannon Drive there was Premier Market, and Jurgensen's and Smith's Food King on Cannon Drive, which the Havana Room is upstairs across from Rite Aid, which was Thrifty's. And then further down the street on Crescent, we had Ralph's Market there, which is now a 100,000 square foot building. And then Jurgensen's was where the Gap is now. And then La Familia was the high-end restaurant where Dean Martin would eat there every night and sit in the back corner. Ken Norian's family, and Archie Dickranian owned that building, is a group out of New York called the Milk Club, came in and opened a nightclub there, which didn't make it. There's also a telephone answering service there that I remember that answered our phone at Crestview 49075 up on Cannon Drive. And the woman who answered our phones had the most beautiful voice. And I decided one day I needed to go down and meet this woman. And I was sorely disappointed. I probably shouldn't have gone down to meet this woman. We used to have gas stations here in Beverly Hills. Of course, we still have the 76 station, which when that was built created quite a fervor out there with the modern architecture. We had gas stations on Rodeo Drive, which is where Fred the Jewelers is now. We had a standard gas stations on Camden and Little Santa Monica Boulevard, I remember. Car dealerships, I remember. Where the city's new parking structure with Williams-Sonoma is. Alright, Ted Fields, who bought the Harold Lloyd estate up in Benedict Canyon there, his wife came to see me one day wanting to rent a retail store on Brighton Way. And she showed up with 2 armed bodyguards, and I showed her the store. It was right next to the alley between Bedford and Camden Drive on the north side of the street. I told her what would be required of the lease, that it would require personal guarantees because she was just starting in business. And she called her husband, said, "I'm sending over Bob Anderson with some documents. I want you to sign them. Would you please sign them for personal guarantees on this space?" And it was pretty amazing. He came out and signed these, didn't ask a question. They subsequently were divorced. Sultan of Brunei, who owns the Beverly Hills Hotel, has never been here. But some of his family members, Prince Geoffrey, has numerous wives. And one day I get this phone call saying that I've been referred to and want to be brought in, that the Sultan of Brunei's brother's wife wanted to buy a building in Beverly Hills. This woman shows up with her trainer and 5 Suburbans full of cops. And she was in a Ferrari with 2 Suburbans on the front and on the back of the escort, and they were stopping traffic at intersections like this was the President of the United States. They also had a Suburban full of household help with them that would have, Cokes or a cocktail or someone to do her nails if she suddenly got the whim to have this done. But this is how they would travel around. So I did sell them a building, and it was for her personal trainer so that she could go and train with this personal trainer. If I had to do this over again, I think I'd be a women's hairdresser, because it seems they put their hands in people's hair and they tell them whatever is on their mind.